Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. This is a very sad day. I can't start this show without saying something about the horrendous events of the day and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't want to get into the particulars or even talk necessarily about him specifically, other than to say that my heart goes out to his wife and his children and all of his friends and everyone who loved him and had a personal relationship with him, because this is just an absolutely devastating tragedy. And it's horrifying for our country to see political violence in any form ever. But this hits close to home, I guess, for me, because I have friends who are friends of his. I personally do not know the man. But the takeaway for me that I want to carry into this show tonight is that we cannot stop telling the truth. If there's one thing that Charlie Kirk did, is he spoke the truth as he saw it. And he tried to do it as civilly as possible. He was in the process of civil discourse when he was murdered. And so, show must go on. I'm going to keep that, in mind when we talk about what we're talking about tonight. It's controversial. You might not all agree with what we're going to say tonight, but I hope you will remember that having these conversations is so important. It's what America is about. And we don't always have to agree, but we should never resort to violence. So having said that, I welcome you again to the channel. If it's your first time here, please consider subscribing to get notified when I do make new content, which is less frequent lately. But when there's something important that I need to bring to you, I will be here. And that is why I'm here tonight. Jay Klyczek is here to talk to us again. He's been here before. He's the author of School World Order. He's talked to us before about, other issues as far as what's really going on behind the scenes of all the so-called school reform. And tonight is no exception. He recently published an investigative report on the connections between financial technology, education technology, and school choice, and how this may all be leading to the building of the social credit system for America. Since we can't just build it from the top down, because that would be unconstitutional, there is strong evidence that the people who want that, the people in power, want us to ask for it, want us to voluntarily sign up for it, want us to voluntarily embrace it, and they want us to fund it without having to have pesky things like votes specifically about it. So then we'll wake up one day, it will be here, and there'll be nothing we can do about it. So we're here to alert you to how that's being done. And hopefully you'll stick around. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. Without further ado, please welcome Jay Klyczek. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Thanks for being here. And thank you for keeping me in the loop when you publish this stuff, because I can't stay on top of all the things. And you do amazing work, and it's really important that I bring it to my audience. So can you give us, the quick and dirty overview, and then we'll dive into the particulars?
Yeah, so basically this is kind of building on the previous piece that we talked about last time. So last time I was here, we talked about how the school choice provisions that have been being pushed by Trump 2.0 are largely aligned with the stuff that was laid out in Project 2025, backed by a array of Koch brothers backed think tanks. And in the process of doing that research, I found that a number of those think tanks were not only promoting the various forms of school choice, these like neo vouchers, so education savings accounts and tax credited scholarships, but they're also promoting digital wallets and the rise of this emerging FinTech economy that's also being pushed through by people like David Sachs, White House AI, and crypto czar. So basically this piece is looking at how the school choice, EdTech, and FinTech is sort of one part of a broader financial evolution as far as the rise of stable coins and the Genius Act goes. And I sort of looked at the ways in which these stable coins, right? These are essentially cryptocurrencies. So they're programmable in addition to being trackable and traceable. And so if you put sort of the EdTech algorithms together with the digital wallet and you attach the programmable, trackable, traceable stable coin to that, you can essentially build feedback loops that can be used for social credit to determine which EdTech product students get to buy with their Neo voucher money. And then based on those outcomes, what types of tokens do the students receive to keep going down their career pathway in alignment with whatever social credit metrics they've aggregated with healthcare and other things.
Well, I think it might be helpful at this point to explain to the audience a little bit about how school choice works in terms of the administration of the money. Obviously, from state to state, it's ever so slightly different, but just to explain the market that creates the incentive to create the stuff that you are talking about. So, states are adopting school choice legislation that allows the state government to finance private education. By private, we don't just mean, the fancy private school down the street. That could mean your kid stays home or even goes to like a warehouse type place where they get online on sort of EdTech, education technology, something that teaches them math, something that teaches them whatever, presumably. And there are technology companies that are building these supposed education tools for teaching, the EdTech. There are technology companies that are in financial services, as we already know. We get PayPal, we get all these other, people already know how to, distribute money, take money in, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we've had health savings accounts for a long time. We've had the FSA accounts for a long time. These have been, this is not new. They don't have to they don't have to invent this. This exists, and they just have to consider how they can work with government to administer the school choice money, right? So the state government's going to give parents some money to spend on these things privately, whether it's a school or a bunch of stuff. And so there's now an incentive. There's a giant pot of money, taxpayer money, that creates this incentive for people who want to get their piece of that pie. And one of the ways they can do that is go to the government and say, hey, guys, we have this handy dandy way for you to administer this without creating a new office and hiring a bunch of people. We can do it technologically. And, all we're going to ask in return is, obviously for the seed money, or at least the contract that guarantees us we're going to get that money out of the public purse. But also, we're going to own the data. So you can own some data, but we're going to co-own the data. And, the government's not going to say no to that, especially if they come in with a good offer to do this, and they can go back to the voters and say, it's not going to cost you a lot of money to administer this stuff. It's going to be new budget neutral, whatever. If something is too cheap, guess what? You're the product. So then you, the parent, are going to have this little wallet, the digital wallet, or whatever your little thing is where all the money is stuffed in there. And what Jake is talking about is, the president is already talking about these little digital stable coins, these stable dollars, that they won't even use real dollars. They'll use these kind of coins to distribute this fund that will be completely traceable. And they can follow your money around. When they talk about the money follows the child, I've tried to say this on this channel, they mean it literally, that they will follow every purchase down to the minute. People will be making purchases, maybe every day. And they will be able to follow it from kindergarten or even preschool all the way through college and grad school. And then, as he mentioned, be able to, have this feedback loop with algorithms that say, here's what they bought. Oh, and then while what they bought, we also run. So we see what they did with what they bought. We see how well they're doing in the ed tech. Are they learning the math fast? Or are they learning math slowly? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? So then they can actually mark these kids with like a little digital ID that not only they spend this way and give these kinds of answers in ed tech, but here's other things that they're doing. We can just follow every decision they're making, and it'll all be done through school choice. And next thing you know, they have mountains and mountains of data on you with which to build this social credit system. And again, we're not saying this is, we know it's definitely happening. We're just saying all signs point there. And what's more is we know that the people who are behind this have indicated they want this for their own benefit. Am I wrong in saying that? They think it would be great.
Yeah, well, I mean, so a few things you put on the table. I mean, the selling pitch is that, so okay, with like something like education savings accounts, these are like, you get like a basket of money, and you can, you could just spend it all on tuition for maybe a, whatever, whether it be a private school or a charter school or whatever, but you could use it for EdTech products and services. You could do it for what they call educational therapies. You could do it for tutoring. Okay. And so one of the Heritage Foundation pieces that was pushing the FinTechs, authored by one of the co-authors of Project 2025, basically the idea is the digital wallets will help eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse.
Sure.
Will help with, so I guess, they've been at some of this at the state level, they've used like prepaid Visa cards and things, which can be programmed. Like they do have purchasing codes, but they're, I guess, broad and vague. So with these digital wallets, and then the stable coins will add a whole nother layer of programmability with precision programmability. But these digital wallets help mitigate some of that. So I guess like one of the areas where people would, I guess, misspend their school choice money would be like at Walmart. So, you can obviously go to Walmart and get like school supplies, but I guess people go in there and buying other things that wouldn't fall into that category. So that's like how they're selling it. To your point that like, I'm not making the argument that social credit system is like here right now through this nexus of FinTech, EdTech, and school choice. But you look at let's just pick out 3 digital wallet companies that specialize in distributing school choice funds, whether they're education savings accounts or tax credit scholarships. Sometimes you can even have micro grants can fit in there. Those technically, you could kind of call those school choice funding mechanisms, vouchers, etc. But 3 of them would be Merit International, Student First Technologies, and another one that's SAP is the parent company, but in particular SAP Arba, and it does a range of financial services for other companies. But between those 3 digital wallet FinTech companies, you have at Merit International a digital identity ecosystem. So they boast that that their authentication process is one of the premier due to this digital identity ecosystem that they use. Student First Technologies, they have an AI platform. It's called Queen IQ, or the platform. It's the digital marketplace platform is called Theodore, which quote empowers stakeholders, by the way. But it has plugged into it this thing called Quinn IQ, which is this AI, human in the loop machine learning, that's going to sort of supposed to make, again, the authentication process more efficient, but obviously it could, pull out analytics in terms of correlations between particular vouchers or scholarships and particular purchases with particular education outcomes, right? And then the third part would be at SAP Arba. Well, they specialize, or they offer services in blockchain, AI, and ESG monitoring. So, I mean, you have 3 companies that if any one of those companies decides to branch out into either the directions of the other companies, right, in terms of either Merit International adds AI to its digital ID system, or Student First Technology adds digital ID to its AI program, or something like SAP Arba just gives you all 3 services at your you know what I mean? Like, all the building blocks are there in place. So
is this diagram like a decent one to show how it works, or is there a better one in your article? I'm trying to show people some things like visually, like some kind of a infographic to indicate how the system works to gather the information.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be a good one to show like how the data is extracted and like the
I'm trying to figure that out. You have so much information here.
That just kind of shows that the ecosystem that the the school choice, sort of the education part of the digital wallet ecosystem is really like, okay, so like a company like Class Wallet, which does, again, well, it does, you know, school choice funds, but it's also been involved in distributing the we're on YouTube, the lockdown stimulus monies for schools.
Lockdown stimulus monies.
And then later, so if you look at their website, though, I don't know which they actually already have contracts with and which they're seeking contracts with, because like like it says FEMA, HUD, and HHS, and some of the links you click on it actually goes to the contract, and other ones there's no link. So I don't know if they're in the works, but the idea is that with Class Wallet, you have a company that was largely designed for a digital wallet company designed for distributing school choice funds, branching out into other public-private, the distribution of other public funds, whether they be emergency services or emergency management funds from FEMA, or housing vouchers through HUD, or health tokens at HHS. And, conversely, a company like Benefit Wallet, that is went the other way around. So it started off, it's a subsidiary of Health Equity Inc., and I guess which specializes in health savings accounts.
Right.
So basically to distribute, I guess, the HHS or the health end of the digital wallet public-private, ecosystem. And then it has later branched out to do some school choice voucher stuff as well. So all of these, with that first diagram you pulled up was just to show that, like, what I'm unpacking in the realm of education is happening in all the other spheres of,
well, that's what I was trying to say. This is already happening in other, areas where benefits are distributed, and they just want to apply it to the school choice. And it seems to make sense. So there'll be a lot of people maybe listening to this and going, well, Deb, how can you have a problem with that when you have stuff like this where, I didn't mean to show that. Hold on. I got to show you this, wasteful spending story where in Arizona, and this got a lot of press, where people are, look at this, sewing machine purchase, $9,900. Remember, this is taxpayer money supposedly for schooling. And then these are some of the purchases, one purchase at a golf store, one purchase for sewing machine, one for Snowbowl ski resort. This is $304 million total spent. Now, we're all gasping in horror. Oh my God, this is terrible. But it also is a perfect marketing campaign for the guys going, hey, we got a fix for that. They can't do this anymore. If we give them this little digital wallet, this handshake, and everything is verified and validated, well, how are they going to do that? Like, how are they going to decide this is a legitimate purchase? Someone's going to decide, the algorithm, the system, whatever. Well, isn't that handy? That your purchases, they'll create the technology to decide whether your purchases are allowed by someone. Now, right now, you think that's fine because it's taxpayer money. But remember, they're selling school choice by telling you it's your money. They keep saying it's your money. It's coming back to you. We're just giving you your money to spend. Well, if it's your money, then why are they hovering around and saying, well, this is inappropriate, that's inappropriate? Obviously, there's somebody somewhere deciding what's an appropriate way to spend your money, which we know is kind of what social credit systems do. In China, if you don't have good social credit, you can't buy a bottle of wine. You can't buy a train ticket. You can't buy whatever they don't want you to buy. So while this right now seems to make sense because you're saying they're distributing public money, remember that the sales pitch for school choice is that it's not public money, that it's your money, that it's money that was going to be spent on you anyway for schooling, and now it's yours given back to you. And I've been saying, and lots of other people saying, no, it's not. It's a subsidy. They're going to use it to control you. They're going to use it to justify monitoring your every move. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, and good evidence of that is to look at, the key players behind this emerging fintech economy. And I'll try not to put too many irons on the fire, but at some point we'll try to segue and show that these same characters are also funding a lot of the EdTech products that are going to be purchased with the digital wallets. And that's, not just to indicate that, right, they're sort of, they get to profit on both ends of the dynamic, but that's also to indicate that they're also going to be getting data on both ends of the dynamic, which is going to feed back into the overall social credit.
Exactly. And this is what people, I've had guests on this show before saying, everybody wants in on all sides of this. And it's convenient and incestuous. We're developing, like the guy, I can't remember this guy's name. He's got Alpha Schools, the AI school that costs $40,000 a year. You supposedly have 2 hours of learning on AI and the rest of the day is projects or whatever it is. But charging parents $40,000 a year, then putting the kids on AI for 2 hours. And do you think he's not collecting mountains of data? And then he also happens to run software companies and buys and sells software companies. And I'm like, do people not see what's going on here? Like, it's so obvious to us, but they don't seem to see it.
Well, the particular characters involved in this debacle, the ones that are most prominently featured in the article, are three key members of the PayPal mafia and one adjacent member, or not a. He's a member. He's a person who is adjacent to the PayPal mafia, and so the three PayPal mafia characters are Peter Thiel,
Elon Musk,
and Elon Musk. And then the other character I mentioned is Mark Andreessen. He wasn't part of the PayPal mafia, but he's on the board of directors of eBay, and eBay and PayPal essentially merged at one point after.
And he's Mr. LinkedIn.
Yeah. Is he LinkedIn?
I think he's linked. He's the LinkedIn guy. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't. I don't
don't know if he owns it anymore, but I'm pretty sure it was his baby.
I thought that was Reid Hoffman.
Oh wait, you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. That was Reid Hoffman. Yeah. You're absolutely right. My bad.
Well, no worries. What features most prominently in the article, as far as Andreessen goes, is A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz venture capital firm. And that's a good place to start, because if you look at one of these fintech companies that, again, facilitates ESAs, education savings accounts, it is funded by Andreessen Horowitz. Okay, Andreessen Horowitz also funds Merit International. Now, in the meantime, Odyssey is also funded by a couple other venture capital firms that either share investments with Andreessen Horowitz or Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, or they're invested in Palantir. So these include Bling Capital and Tusk Venture Partners. And then if we zoom in on Merit International, that one's also funded.
So where is that? Like, there's so much stuff
going. Merit is going to be.
There's Palantir. There's Mithril.
I keep going. It's a ways down. You got to get.
And then of course they all have these like Lord of the Rings style names.
You're past it, actually. Oh yeah. I mean, the Thielverse, all that. Yeah. Erebor and well, that's not his.
Okay.
That's one of his
Did I pass it?
It's actually up. Yeah, you have to go up. I'm sorry. This is the last section of the piece.
Okay. So Mithril, Palantir, Coke. We got all these guys stand for. Okay. Peter Thiel, World Economic Forum.
It's going to be towards the top of this section, or towards the middle. You'll see it. Okay. It's going to be the next one.
Here, we got Merit.
Yeah, that's it. And so Merit is, there's our friend Jeff Yass. Merit International has won the Yass Prize for, it's called STOP Education is the acronym, but I think it's Sustainable, Transformative, Outstanding, and Permissionless Education. And that's connected to Jean Allen and the CER, and she goes way back to the old school school choice movement with Bennett and whatnot. Bennett, by the way,
But you mean, look at this here. Synchronously, Merit authenticates digital credentials through a digital identity ecosystem engineered to optimize grants management, emergency management, workforce development. This term scares the piss out of me. Workforce development. I'm sorry, we don't have, who gets to decide what that looks like, right? And professional licensing, your permission to work. Additional investors in Merit's ID tech tech system include Experian, which is one of the big three. That's literally a credit rating system, folks.
And they actually did. Go ahead, you finish that section.
No, they're already giving people credit with it. We don't understand where that comes from.
Well, and they were managing. If I remember correctly, during the great lockdowns of 2020, they were managing the database in Illinois that was going to hold our health passports.
Yes.
So you know you had Experian, a credit reporting company that's managing the health record database that determines whether I go to work. Like, sounds like social credit to me. I mean, you know what I mean? So
Well, exactly. Exactly.
Another one that's important to note there is Stand Together Ventures Lab, which is basically like the venture capital arm of the Stand Together nonprofit, and that's the Koch brothers. So what you see here is basically the convergence of the old school neoconservative and beltway libertarian think tanks that I dug into in the first piece. So that's like American Enterprise Institute, Cato, EdChoice, American Legislative Exchange Council, Heritage, etc. That brand of sort of the Republican machine converging with their sort of futurist Silicon Valley arm, and that's your PayPal Mafia, that's your Peter Thiel and your David Sachs, both of whom have also been very influential in sort of the right-wing culture wars. They were editors at the Stanford Review. They wrote the Diversity Myth, etc. And so this is a good sort of cross section to see how those two ends of the new right are coming together in this school choice.
Well, you know what bothers me, Jake, is that these people, some of them individually, never mind collectively, have enough money that if they wanted to privatize education back to, you know, the way it was at the founding of the Republic, by virtue of just opening private schools and making them really, you know, like affordable, accessible, et cetera, without a nickel of public funds, they could absolutely do it. And these guys are businessmen. Like, they would know how to do it. They know how to even train their own teachers. They could privatize the whole thing. But what's missing in all of your investigative report is any acknowledgement that there might be another way, that maybe the real way to restore freedom and reform education is to get the government out of it completely. That's nowhere in this. Mr. Libertarian Peter Thiel, all these people are supposedly libertarians. They're diving right in as if it's a foregone conclusion that we are just always going to have this giant pot of taxpayer money and exploiting it, instead of trying to use their brains, their technology, their companies, their money. And I'm not saying they should do it for charity. I'm saying there's money to be made doing that, but they're choosing instead. So that's where all the alarm bells go off with me, is that instead of saying, like, look, after COVID, what was there? A lot of outrage at the schools, a lot of outrage at the government for shutting down the schools. Parents are up in arms about the performance or lack thereof of the schools. The market is there. The people begging for school choice is proof the market is there for another solution. They could come in and just build it off to the side, this alternative pathway, and people could just go, bye, government schools, see you later. We're going to Peter Thiel and whatever else's stuff on our own, and they've made it possible for us. But instead, they're doing this little fascistic thing and making it possible for the government to not only save public education, but they're rent seeking. They're like, we want the taxpayer dollars for ourselves, and we want that as seed money. It's gross.
Yeah, well, this is all part of the new the new AI economy and the new FinTech economy is all part and parcel to the new impact investment economy. And I touched a little bit on that in the previous piece that we talked about. And a lot of one of the perks of one of the differences between the education savings accounts and the tax credited scholarship, sometimes they're both, by the way. If you could look at them state by state, I've been building out my database and looking at all the different ones. So basically, education savings account means a basket of monies. Tax credited scholarship can just mean for the tuition for a school, but sometimes, but it is going to be distributed by a scholarship granting organization or a scholarship funding organization. Okay. But sometimes those SFOs or SGOs, instead of just giving you a scholarship for tuition, they'll give you a basket of money. So they'll manage, they'll basically sit on your education savings account. Okay. But a lot of those SGOs and SFOs are impact investment firms or connected to them.
Can you explain, in case people haven't seen that show, what an impact investment means?
Yeah. So in education, there's provisions for a particular type of impact investment, and it's known as pay for success. So the impact investment firm, nonprofit, whatever, they put money up front to help achieve some program, help it achieve particular outcomes. It could be educational, it could be workforce, it could be healthcare, whatever. And then based on the extent to which those outcomes are achieved, that investment firm, that nonprofit will either get that money back, or if it exceeds, right, if it exceeds the outcomes, it can actually make a profit. It's going to get that money back from the government. Okay. So how do you, but obviously, right, in order to prove that you achieve the outcomes to get the money, and right, you have to track the data, right? And so
that's right.
To make it scalable, right? You're not, the type of data they want, because they want it individualized, but they also want all the other group metrics, age, race, gender, zip code, socioeconomic background, right? Institution wide, right? If the vouchers are coming through to a particular institution.
Well, the government mandates that anyway. So even if they didn't want it, which they do, the government requires them to collect that, because the justification, of course, is we have to make sure it's equally distributed across all the demographic, blah, blah, blah. And of course they can come and go, yeah, we agree. Yeah, they have other uses for it.
So essentially you need the AI to get the data, and you need the data to get the impact investment money, and the impact investment firm needs the data to get the money back from the government. So it's all built into this new form of economy. And in the long term, basically what I see is they're going to basically securitize human beings. So I'm not a finance guy. I touched base with the former editor of Bitcoin magazine, Mark Goodwin, to make sure I was understanding the jargon correctly. And when we were discussing the rise of stable coins, we talked about, the debate over whether they should be classified as commodities or securities. And, I was a layperson. I said, what exactly is, classifies? What makes a security a security? He says, well, there's this thing, they call it like the Howey something tests. And there's like Howey farms or Howey orchards. And the idea is that, right, you have expected future profits, not the increased valuation on the asset itself. So it's like if you buy land, right, that land can appreciate in time. You could make a profit on that. But right, when you in this Howey orchard situation, you were purchasing the fruit that was going to grow on it, right? It wasn't the appreciated value of the land. So, right, you're expected for this other profit to be extrapolated later on. You're to receive part of that. So,
okay,
if you look at a human being, and you look at the student and you go, okay, so if student X, right, meets outcomes A and B, right? And I've seen American Enterprise Institute white papers where they break down learning outcomes. They financialize or quantify them in terms of monetary outcomes. So they go, well, if students do really bad, they end up in jail or mentally ill, or they can't get jobs, and right, we have to pay for prisons, or we have to be rehabilitated, or we need workforce training, right? This costs us money in social services, right? On one end, and on the other, if they do good, right, they put money in the economy. So, right, we can basically quantify that with AI. Right. Those could be future expected profits or savings. Right. We could basically put those in a bond, attach it to the human being, and then the school choice monies can go to those peoples, maybe with some added impact investment funds. And basically these companies can bet on or gamble on the outcomes of the students.
That's so disgusting. Like, I can't even wrap my head around how disgusting that is.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's, when people talk about techno-feudalism, that's exactly, it gives a whole new
and
spin
what
on the term
happens to
human
the
resources.
student? What happens to the individual if they don't pay off?
Well, that's where the ESG stuff comes in. So, right. So you could be a company like, oh, look at this kid's algorithms. Like, he's definitely going to make profit. I'll put money in there. And then you got a lot of other kids that, right, their algorithms, they say, hey, they might not achieve the outcomes. Well, those kids are marginalized for whatever reason. Maybe it's just their learning capabilities, but you could add all the other identity categories to it. And then, right, the incentive to put money into that, which you probably are going to lose, is your social credit points are going to go up on your ESG to sort of make up for the difference. And that's the way that you get the supply chain to spin around smoothly.
Oh, I see how it is. Wow. I can't,
sorry.
This is so, Jake, this is so dark. It's really hard to process. Like, parents don't have children to turn them into little commodities to be invested in by people far away who are going to be looking at a numeric, sort of digital representation of their child. And then that's going to determine what opportunities are available to them. This is central planning run amok.
And look, I know it, I mean, I've laid out all the particulars in both these pieces, right? And Alison McDowell, she used to talk about the impact investment, and it wasn't until I did this deep dive into the FinTech that I understood it, like in terms of was able to articulate it the way that I just did. Because I'm not a finance guy. I didn't sorry.
They don't know that Trump is already federalizing stable coins.
Oh yeah. So, and that's, the incentive here is that, so it's also, so you got the programmable and the trackable and traceable, but like, okay, it's also designed to prop up dollar hegemony in the global economy, right? Because in order to make a stable coin, to be authorized to make a stable coin, you have to back your coins 1-to-1 with either treasury bills, bonds, or notes. Right. And so in other words, you'd have to put money into the bonds that prop up the dollar. Right. It's kind of like what we did in the 70s after we got off the gold standard and they did the petrodollar. So they forced people to prop up the dollar by, hey, you got to use oil. And to use oil, you have to prop up the T-bills. So this is the same kind of idea. And so that's the other reason why it's going to take off, because it's designed to do that. But there's also, when you're talking about moving large amounts of money, it's cheaper. You could bypass the SWIFT system. So there's all these other economic incentives. And then to your point, right, you also, as the company, the owner, the holder of the stable coin, you have the data, and that's worth money, right? Because you can broker that on the market as well. So I was like, Genius Act. I get it. I understand why you called it genius. It's pretty smart. I got to tell you.
Well, like I said, there will be people who will either read your piece or listen to us talking here and say, yeah, I don't have a problem with this. Like they'll think, what's the problem? If a kid does well, or a kid, is achieving, and then people can make money off of that. And I'm like, well, what do you care? And I'm like, I do not see how many hidden doors are going to be closed and you'll never know why. And, you want to, it's, I stop being articulate when I try to explain why this is a problem to people who don't get that it's a problem, or they get stuck on, well, I got to get my kid out of the public school and school choice is going to help me do that. So you just want to keep my kid stuck in a bad school. And I'm like, but ironically, even in that terrible school, which believe me, I wouldn't wish a kid to stay in a terrible school, they'd still, without all this mess, they'd still be like freer, if that makes sense, than in this horror show. This is the Matrix.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, so if your child's not in a great school, how many schools nearby are around you, are close enough to drive to, that are that much better? Like, odds are, especially if you're in like probably the some of the worst of the performing schools, there's probably one very far at all. You might live in a food desert or a transportation desert, and you can't. So where's that money going to go? It's going to go into online learning. It's going to go into EdTech products. It's the only option that you can have. Maybe you could get some private tutoring or something, but the bulk of that is, it's set up to where that money's going to go into the EdTech products that are going to do the data tracking. And I did over time, so like with that Quinn IQ AI, like as they go through a couple rounds of funding, the AI, and they'll start to pull out analytics to say that, well, look, these products don't produce any outcome, so we're not going to authorize you, right? Or this school doesn't get this doesn't produce the right outcome, so you need a special type of token to go to that school, or we're not going to allow it otherwise. So, like, yeah, I think that.
Well, what I see happening most quickly, because the people who choose not to participate in any of this, homeschoolers, traditional homeschoolers, people are like, yeah, I'm out, I'm staying home, and I'm going to teach my kids out of old-fashioned books. That's going to not be allowed because
Yeah,
how can you allow people to go? They already don't allow people to go off grid in many places when it comes to other things, right? Electricity, internet, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they really have clamped down in many states on trying to live your life off the grid. So if you think once these bills are in place and once this kind of system is in place that you're going to be able to go, no, I'm just going to keep my kids home and not participate, and they're going to allow that. They're not going to allow that.
Yeah. Well,
That's not going to be allowed. Well, no, we need to keep track of whether your child is being abused. We need to keep track of whether your child's actually learning. You have to at least plug into this EdTech once a day and check in. Yeah. You have to take this test at the end of the year. You have to do this. You have to do that, because there's no way they're going to allow people an exit strategy from this once they build it.
In Illinois, they are, so they had they got one of the first voucher bills they got in was came as a result of the first chapter of my book, which I won't go into. I've talked about it I think on your show before, so people can do some reruns. But recently, so they already had that school choice system in place. I mean, Chicago was one of the one of the first places to basically privatize almost the entire public school system with charter schools.
Look how well that worked out.
Yeah, well, now what they're doing is, so if you're a homeschooler in Illinois, you have to register and you have to comply with all these regulations, etc. And now there's a provision where it's mandatory mental health screening for all children attending school. Now, I think you can opt out, but you only have a certain amount of time to opt out. And if you're not paying attention, you're not aware that, I'm sure there's a lot of people that probably, they're not even aware that that's going to happen. But so I would imagine then if they essentially put homeschool under, the purview of government regulation, then I'm pretty sure that the mental health checks apply to them as well. Certainly, if you take the voucher money, 100%.
Well, 100% if you take the voucher money, but I think even if you don't, because remember, their argument is that people who are so mistrustful of government, they said this during COVID with the shots, they said this, that those people are sick. There's something wrong with them, and we can't allow them to raise their children to be like that too. So that's always the justification. If you don't do what the mainstream is doing, there's something wrong with you. You're a kook. You're mental, that you need to have a psyche valve. And we already know that the government will, do absolutely anything to separate kids from their parents if they possibly can. If mom and dad are not playing ball with whatever the rules are, then by definition, they're abusive. And, I just look at this graph as an example. With these so-called learning analytics, look at all of these points of contact where they can collect data and are collecting data already. This is all already happening. This graph right here is the state of the situation. That's without
ILO, International Labor Organization, which is part of the UN, which was actually part of the.
Remember, the Department of Education itself used to be in the Department of Labor.
No, yeah. I'm just saying that's like scaling what we talked about out to the global level. Yeah. Remember the stablecoin thing, right? Is a global phenomenon. Like we talked about how, it'll also prop up the dollar, because like if you go and purchase stuff in a foreign country, a lot of times if you got dollars in your pocket or you've got some of the local currency, a lot of people will like the dollars. Well, now because you can bypass the SWIFT system and you've got all these handshakes and cryptography and all the blockchain and the digital wallets, you can have average folks be in the American banking system using stable coins, right? And I'm just saying,
but I just meant
data goes back into this, that lattice that you're looking at from micro to macro.
Right. But what I'm just trying to get across is kids already have student dashboards. They already have staff dashboards. They already have all these business intelligence reporting tools. This is already in every school right now. The cross-system data integration already happening. They're already using predictive models. They're already doing personalized learning using AI. I mean, they call it personalized. I call it junk, but whatever. They're already doing measured impact and organization strategy. North Carolina just released their big, strategy for the next 5 years to become the best schools in the country, whatever. And noticeably absent from the entire report is any mention of academic performance. everything is about celebrating the system, celebrating the educators, giving them more money, having more support for the community. Like, I'm like, where's the part where we actually read? So I just feel like these kids are being, warehoused for 13 years to train AI models, and to, the whole learning from AI is actually kind of backwards. They're doing more training of the AI and the algorithms so that they can then be manipulated and commodified and sold.
And look, as we speak, I've lost many of my tutoring hours to an AI bot at one of the schools where I teach. So there's a company called Upswing. Okay.
Yep.
And by the way, it doesn't just tutor, it can help. It does like their daily planning, but it also it does mental health for them. Now I don't know.
How convenient.
I don't know if it actually gives them mental health services or if it just
it's surveilling them. It's probably surveilling them.
Oh, for sure. But the interesting thing was that Governor Pritzker in Illinois did pass some kind of bill that's supposed to ban mental AI, generative AI as a therapy. I don't know what the loopholes might be in there, but I'm wondering, I've mentioned some things to some people at the school as carefully as possible, and I'm not sure that it's landing. It's to the degree that they're receptive. I don't know that they feel like they can or are able to, or maybe even want to try to rock the boat. But that would be one thing that could be suggested, is that I don't know if this is legal to have this mental health bot, but the bot is called Anna. Okay. And I think it's like short for analytics. And the reason why I say that is because the one, so if you go through the company website, the main page shows we get all these outcomes improvements, and it's got all these metrics for individual outcomes, and again, group outcomes, gender, race, institution wide, etc. Right? And so that's the selling point. You get all these analytics. Well, so I decided to go Upswing. Let's see who funds Upswing. Well, excuse me. It's a ton of venture capital firms, okay, but it's also several impact investment firms. One of them is social finance, which I've written about in the previous piece that we discussed, the one that in the last episode we did. And I also discussed it in a video I did where I dig into something called UNESCO Study 11, how it was connected to Project Best that Charlotte Iserbyt blew the whistle on. So, what do you have there? You have exactly what I'm saying, right there in that company. You have the incentive for this school to use this is, again, they get this AI. And I'll tell you another one thing that I noticed that was interesting, because this particular school is predominantly Black and in a relatively impoverished neighborhood. And a lot of the venture capital firms and impact investment firms behind the company are predominantly Black owned. So remember what we talked about as far as leveraging the possibility that, right, some of the outcomes might not be as good as in other areas that maybe have more money. And then you're servicing underserved, marginalized populations. So that's where you get to buttress, the money on the receiving end. And so my guess,
carbon credits, but for education.
Kind of. My guess is this: at the end of this year or this semester, or this fiscal year, they'll have enough data to show whether accurate or not. They'll have enough numbers to make an argument that bot does the students just as well as the human teachers, and it's cheaper, and it gets some grants. So bye human tutors. That's my guess. And that's we can use that as sort of an analogy for what you were talking about with the voucher money just at home. Eventually, that's, when they get enough data to go, well, why would we program your tokens to be able to buy human beings when they don't get the outcomes that these other things get?
And of course, they can conveniently rig the outcome data to say what they want it to say, because they control the algorithms and they control all the assessments, and they can write all the tests, and they can do, it's so insanely obvious how self-interested these people are. Well, and none of this has anything to do with education. None of it.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. I was gonna say that, and when you look at like how they set it up, like where like so on at the school, like for where you the page that has the human tutor link and the other one, like it's described in a way where it sounds like the human tutors don't do virtual, which we do, because it's got like one button for virtual and one button for it just says writing center. Okay. But the other thing is that the writing center button is pretty much buried underneath, the upswing. And you know that most people, they click on the first button, not the second. You know what I mean? So it's like you look at it and you go like, it's they want upswing to be successful and most likely for money.
All right, this is creepy. Thiel is invested in Skinnerian adaptive learning courseware.
Yeah, clever.
Because children are just like dogs. We're gonna, use behaviorism to teach them what they need to know.
Yeah, I wrote about that, and I've wrote about that several times. That's in my book. I mean, and then listen, this is the man with Palantir. Right. I mean, like the Palantir, look in that book, which came out in 2019, I basically surmised that his Palantir would become the engine for an American style social credit system. I mean, and then he's invested in all the things that I just described, which would be all the building blocks for it. And then he's got like the mother brain Palantir with its foundry and its ontology. And now it's all linked up in all the government agencies. Like,
Well, Conmigo too. You talk about Khan Academy, but Conmigo is the creepiest thing I've ever seen. For those of you who are not, familiar with it, kids can go on there and they get rated by their peers for their opinions and their how they argue and how they debate and what they say, and they get rated. It's like an episode of the Orville where they get like thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever. And then that gets stored and you get points for like how many people liked your arguments and how many people liked your opinions. And these are your peers.
Oh, wow.
So they're getting them used to, at a very early age, they're getting them used to, go into these controversial topics that you know nothing about, express your opinions, and everybody's going to go, I like you, I don't like you. And then that's going to be stored and you can get credit. You can get credit for that. Like you can actually put that colleges are now accepting Conmigo scores and ratings as part of your application. Yeah, people like me because of my opinions.
And this is where the other end. So the blockchain, the distributed ledger technology is not just can be used for more than just distributing the crypto tokens. It can be also used for logging all of the information, right, about those transactions and the outcomes associated with whatever was purchased or whatever program was gone through. And what you see there, what you just pulled up is, so between all the people we just mentioned, Andreessen, Sachs, Thiel, Musk, they're all invested in one or more of the following. The Skinnerian adaptive learning courseware, data mining the cognitive behavioral thinking algorithms. Effectiva, that's the biofeedback wearables, that's data mining your emotions, something like that. I think of that Effectiva, that brace, that's a GSR bracelet, but they got the heart rate monitors and the brainwave monitors. Then
which they've been using in China for years, by the way.
Yeah, the brain code. I think we looked at that video.
So creepy.
Yeah.
This child is not paying attention. I'm sending a text immediately to their parent. And we're like, oh my God, stop.
And then the last, so in the book, basically what I laid out is that, and we're basically towards the end of the book. I thought I was going to have more time to I thought it was, relatively a sci-fi dystopic scenario. I didn't think it was going to be here so quick, but I mean, what I basically laid out was that the data that comes from those devices that I just laid out, the cognitive behavioral and the social emotional, is that they're little machine learning building blocks for generative AI. You put them through large language models and neural networks. Out comes the GPT. They can not just process language, but it can also track and trace your thinking patterns and your emotional patterns, and then put that in a psychological profile that determines your access to public services, commercial services.
I wouldn't want my children
sorry
anywhere near this. I wouldn't want my children anywhere near this. So Leave Them Kids Alone says, just tuning in, assessments are adaptive as well. I tried to take the 3rd grade sample a few years ago. There's an extremely loud voice saying the questions and the kids are supposed to answer rapidly. seems like a psychological test rather than anything academic. They're just firing questions at them. And it's like, answer. This is so, you talk about dystopian sci-fi nightmare, but none of this has anything to do with your individual child getting a good education so he or she can pursue his or her dreams, happiness, goals, talents, whatever. No, they are literally like funneling these kids into, and who knows where it leaves off, like the chicken and the egg scenario. If this starts down in preschool or kindergarten and they keep adaptive learning, like funneling these kids into, oh, you answered this way, you go over here. Here's what you're going to learn next. Here's what you're going to do next. You have no idea. You, the parent, have no idea what doors have been slammed on them. None. What did you call it? Techno-feudalism?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect description.
Yeah. I mean, if you think, right, I mean, like when I was talking about, basically they call them, they're social impact investment bonds, which you could attach to the impact, the learning outcomes, but you could just attach it to the student's profile. Sometimes they call them human capital bonds. Right. So like, I don't know, like human bondage, like being in bondage to a feudal lord, like a feudal technocrat essentially that's what I see.
Right. I really, Conmigo is very disturbing. They call it an AI tutor and they say it's always available, et cetera. But there's a section of it, the most popular section of it is the part where they have these little debates. So it starts off as a, kind of like you think you're going on to get help from peers, like, please help me with, this thing or whatever. But then there's a section of it where it's got a section of it where it's for debates. And I've got to figure out what it's called because I read a whole thing about it and I was so grossed out. And it was free for a while. Now you pay for it. But of course you can pay for it with ESA money. And Bill Gates loves it, thinks it's awesome. That there should tell you something about it. But yeah, it's very concerning how it works. And it's all part of this situation.
One of the things that I didn't know, because it's kind of a side note, but it's kind of a tangent, but it's something to be aware of, like, and to note, which is that Anabot. So there's like, and anybody goes, if you go to upswing.com, go to I don't know if it's a homepage or it's maybe the about page. Somewhere in there, it's got a tutorial. And it appears that this bot is all text-based. I don't think it gives a verbal response. But it's got like a little like mock, conversation between the student and Anna. And first it's like, can you help me organize my day? Thanks. Can you help me with this homework? Thanks. I don't feel so good. I'm kind of sad. Can you? Oh, don't worry. And it sends them to some mental health thing. And then it's like hyper affirmative. Like everything that it starts off like, oh, that's totally understandable. And then at the end of it, the student's going, I thank you so much. And it literally says something like, I can't believe you care so much about me and you don't even know me. And then it did heart emojis. So it didn't say I love you, but it did the heart emoji. So in the meantime, on top of everything else that we just said, like this bot is these kids are going to bond with these bots. Like I saw a documentary, me and my wife were watching something where these people, I guess, were dating their GPT AI. And I'm looking at it
so creepy.
I'm thinking like, well, these are like programmed to do that, to interact with you and try to like bond. I'm like, wait a minute. Are you telling me all of these things are programmed like that? Like in what situation would it be appropriate for the teacher, human, to be talking and bonding with the student like that? Like everybody would be creeped out, but when it's the bot, it's appropriate. This thing's supposed to help it with mental health. You don't think that having an emotional bond with a bot is going to cause mental problems long term? Like, well, we don't have the data to say that yet. I don't think I need data to be able to infer that that's going to dissociate you from actual human behavior and interaction. Like, but that's a whole other layer of like, questions that need to be asked, and people, apparently there's not a whole lot of people that are too just perturbed by Upswing. at this particular school. It sounds like most people are either.
And
like,
that's what it's called. It's upswing. That's the
Yep. It's one word, upswing. It's probably upswing.com, I think is how you get straight to it.
Wow. Yeah, upswing. I'm kind of curious because I've never heard of it. They keep coming up with new things and I can't stay ahead of all of this stuff, you know? Yeah. So what's the I don't even know what to tell people anymore. I mean, you know, I'm opposed to school choice and school choice legislation because I think it's just growing the government and giving them way too much money and way too much control over our private choices all by itself without all this stuff. But it does seem like there's no stopping that. People seem to want school choice. But I mean, do you think it's a fair assessment that if you get school choice in your state, you're going to get this kind of system? Because they have the problem that they have to solve when they give you school choice is the distribution of funds. That's not going to change. That they need a system to give you the money and keep track of the money because it is taxpayer money. So they need to make sure your expenditures are appropriate. They've got to make sure they're distributing it, you know, in an equal opportunity kind of way. So they got to collect all kinds of data. They have to give that data back to the federal government because as of now, the Trump administration has not changed anything about how the federal government collects data. They haven't repealed any of the laws that require the collection of data. So that's all still in place. That nothing has changed. And if anything, it's expanded. He now wants federal school choice. So, like,
well, they got, you know,
what
they got
can we
the big.
do?
I was going to say, you know, in the big beautiful bill, they got a combination of the two. So in that first piece we discussed, Project 2025, they wanted to convert a certain portion of Title I funds into education savings accounts, right? Which would be that basket of money that you could use for several products. And then they were also wanted to push the ECCA, things like Educating Children for Choice Act, which was going to be tax credit scholarships distributed by an SGO. So in the big beautiful bill, what they got is they put a rider in there. It's an SGO distributing mechanism, but this is one of those that doubles up. So, but it doesn't just give, because the ECCA was just tuition for schools. This is a tax credit scholarship, SGO, SFO, that's gonna basically sit on an ESA, a basket of money. So they got federal. They got the worst parts of both of those things in the big beautiful bill. Yeah, that's upswing. Yes. Yeah,
I was,
scroll down a little bit. I think the video is
reach more students than ever.
Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna.
Click
There's
on the
Anna.
thing next to Anna. Is there a link next to Anna?
Learn how Anna works.
It's like a 2-minute video. You might want to. Yeah, here it goes.
Hi,
There it is. There it is.
Anna.
There it is.
All right,
it's horrific.
Let's see if we can,
and the music.
Hi. Helps me a lot. You're a machine. Right. This exchange would never happen between a real human. Keep a planner. Okay, I'll do that. That's revolutionary, Jake. Whoever thought of keeping a planner? I needed a machine to tell me that. A great video about time management. Yeah, if only that worked. Whoa, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I could manage my time better. If only someone gave me a video before now. I hope everything's okay. I'm embarrassed to ask my professor. Let's normalize being embarrassed to talk to a human.
Mind you, this is being used out of college. So these people are all 18 years old. There might be some dual credit, 16, but they're all pretty close to 90% are adults.
So we completely validate the entire, I'm too embarrassed to ask my professor. Oh my God. are you feeling? I need help.
The number 4, mental health. 5, something else. And then something else turns out to be mental health. So it funnels it back into number 4 after.
Again, let's normalize not talking to humans about our problems.
Yeah. That's gotta have negative effects.
I'm so sorry for your loss. No, you're not. You're a machine. You have no feelings. I asked for a mental health extension.
And now you're in the mental health community.
Again, what bothers me about this is it's not like students have never dealt with the death in a family, never dealt with these things. They just used to ask human beings for help.
Yeah, here it goes.
I'm gonna be sick.
Did they change it? Wait, hold on. Oh, okay, this is where it's like, why? Something like,
I knew you could do it.
To have a complete stranger take time to actually care about my. She's talking about the bot. I mean, these aren't real people.
Much love and gratitude your way.
Oh, it did say love. I didn't tell you.
It's a freaking machine.
And nobody. Listen, and this is, think about this. That's what's on their home, not their home, but that's what's on the front, one of the front facing pages on their website. They think that's appropriate. That's an appropriate way to entice parents and their teachers or students, etc., everybody involved to buy this product. That they're showing you, this is what we'll be doing with your student, and you're supposed to go, that's great. Like what? Like how dissociated?
Yeah, I definitely want my child to not call me when they're struggling with the death of a family member. I definitely want them to talk to a machine.
And the other thing is
so disturbing.
Like technically, I didn't follow the back and forth, but like, listen, you know this from teaching, like at a public institution, probably the same at a private institution. When you give out the syllabus on day 1, there's a little part that says, hey, if you have a disability and you didn't report it to somebody, go and do that. Because you're not allowed as a teacher to go, who has a disability, or go up to Johnny or Janie and go like, I think you have a disability, or you have, or goes.
Exactly.
It falls under healthcare, HIPAA, medical stuff. You can't also go up and be like, I think you're mentally ill, or I think you need, like, you'd be in trouble. You'd be crossing the line. But as far as I can tell, the bot can do that. Like, it's just not only is the bot doing the things that humans should do together, which is like transgressive in itself, but it's transgressing the things that humans aren't allowed to the borders that humans aren't allowed to cross, and
yet it's still collecting all those responses.
For
the unsuspecting person, thinking it's private conversation. It's not a private conversation. And then the other thing that makes me sick is the metric they keep talking about is improving graduation rates. Graduation is not the be all end all. Okay. How many people graduate can be tweaked so many different ways that have nothing to do with the student actually understanding material, performing on, in the exams, all that kind of stuff. You can change all of that. We've seen it with grade inflation, how you write the tests, whatever. You just change the criteria for graduating, credit recapture. Look, you graduated. I mean, this is improved graduation rates shouldn't be the metric.
And that's another
we should be graduating fewer people, actually, if they haven't done the work and they cannot do it. Why are we credentialing them?
And like you said, that's another way for, anybody in that loop, from the upswing or whatever AI company and the school and the institution and the impact investment firm to for the school on their end of it to go like, we can get more money if we lower our standards, and then we'll be able to show that we doubled graduation rates, and we'll get even more impact investment money. Like, and this has been done in school. I mean, not necessarily for impact, but this has been done with NCLB and things, but go ahead.
Part AI, part human driven. Yeah. Which part? And then they talk about it, a dedicated team was on hand to answer questions. How does a student know when it's a person, when it's a machine, who's on the other side? They're never going to know. And then we have this student data. So can help you better understand how your students feel. That means all their feelings are being shared with the people who bought this product and distributed it to the students. It can help you better understand how your students feel. How about that's none of your effing business? If a student goes to the counselor, a human counselor, they don't get to share that with the administration. They don't get to share that with the teacher. They don't even get to share with the parent because these are adults. And even once they're over 13 in a public school, they don't get to share it with it. So we'll share how your students feel at the data. And like, hey, parents, hey, kids, how do you feel about that? Yeah. Customized campaigns. Oh, would you like your students to feel certain things?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, there's like all these campaigns to destigmatize mental health issues.
Okay, can we normalize stigmatizing some things? I think we need to do that again.
Well, in the meantime, it's like, well, let's not stigmatize it, but you will go in, you will have a check mark next to your name that, whatever databases can access for, if your social credit score dips below a particular line, some of those
everyone's going to know that you have anxiety.
They might have detrimental effects on your other algorithms, is what I'm saying. And so it's disingenuous to, basically coax everybody to just share all your mental health issues with AI, so it has a log of all that.
They don't even show what they actually look like. They've got cartoons in place of their faces.
Well, cartoons
are
friendly, and
are these even real people?
Yeah, those
do
are
we even know?
Who knows?
I'm gonna just look. I mean, you can't even click on them, so I don't know. But then here's a picture of the team. So I guess I'm assumed that must be Becky. Let's see, who else can I identify here? Maybe that's Simone. I don't know. I can't really tell because they're using cartoons. It's so creepy, but they look so friendly, don't they?
Yeah, I wonder, and I don't know. So, like I said, my first coming in contact with this is, it replacing part of my hours. But so at a college, there's all those metrics I was talking about, or some of them, anyways. Look at that. So, student choice scheduling. I'm not sure, but where I was going with
tutor marketplace includes tutors, bios, education, language, and supported subjects. You know what? I bet if there are human tutors. Were you tutoring through this, or this is what you're losing?
No. This is replacing the human tutors. Like this is.
If they have human tutors, I bet that they pay them diddly shit.
Oh,
if there's one thing I'm learned from these tutoring services is they pay. Like they've got like business tutor, medical billing and coding tutor. These are tutors. Remote contract. So I'm very curious. Remote async writing tutor.
What I do know is that from what I had heard and discussed with some of the people that were talked with.
Oh, look, Jake, can you live on $13 per hour? $15 per hour?
That's like Pearson. Did I ever tell you the story? I mean, I think I might. Look, one of the ways I got into this, started writing my book and the articles that became the book and everything since was I was working for, I used to not say the company's name because they made me sign a non-compete clause. And it was a long time ago. I just, I put my neck out enough doing journalism. I didn't want to give anybody a reason to bother me. So I waited a long time. But the online tutoring company I used to work for that had IBM's Watts and co-piloting with us, it was called Smart Thinking, and it was a subsidiary of Pearson. And they paid me with a master's degree $11 an hour. Now, if I would have went back to school for 5 more years and got my PhD, I could have got a whole $12 an hour, because that's worth an improvement from a master's to a PhD.
Yeah, but Varsity Tutors pays about $12 an hour. And I think the highest I've ever seen is $20 an hour. But the thing is, what parents need to understand is they put tutors. I worked for Varsity Tutors for a while, but they put you through the ringer as a human being, as far as like, take this test, take that test, but prove you can do this, prove you can do that. And we're not going to let you be certified for this subject to tutor at $12 an hour, but they charge the parents a boatload of money. So they're absolutely like,
well,
why bother?
I do what I had heard about this particular company. I didn't actually double check on the website. What I had heard about this upswing is that The human tutoring part is like one of those paper mill things. It's not tutoring when you mark up a paper, and that's editing. Okay.
That's
Like, I mean,
right.
and the argument from the rep, well, and from the people at, Pearson as well, was like, well, but wouldn't you rather the student get some kind of feedback rather than none? And it's like, well, no, the difference between tutoring and editing is, in tutoring, the pencil's in the student's hand. Right. Everything that
Yeah.
changes on the paper is a result of my non-directive questioning, leading the student to understand what is wrong here with the sentence or the thesis or the organization,
Right.
whatever it might be. Right. So the human tutors in there aren't technically, I wouldn't even consider them tutors. I'd consider them more editors. Right. And I'm sure that Anna is involved in that in some way, or at least in the machine learning process. They probably have a super rigid format like they had at Smart Thinking. I won't say their proprietary step-by-step process, even though I think Smart Thinking as a company doesn't even exist anymore. But like, it was like very uniform. It was like 5 steps. And so you had to do those steps in that order every time you address whether a higher order concern or a lower order concern. And when they told me that IBM Watson was basically co-piloting with us, for people that don't know, it was the premier AI before all things GPT were like ubiquitous. But when I looked at that, I was like, oh, well, that's why that's all rigid like that, because if they let everybody have their own style of tutoring and come at it from a different approach and organize it in a different manner, it's going to be much more difficult for the AI, for the machine learning to pick up the signal, the patterns. But
how good are these humans going to be? Again, $12 to $16 an hour. My 17-year-old makes $13 an hour as a barista part-time. And that's not counting tips. I mean, why would anybody with a degree, or never mind a master's degree, want to do this?
Well, you might not want to, you might have to.
Well, I get that, but I mean, dude, I'm waiting tables now. So, like, for real, I am actually.
Well, isn't that's like, I think in some states, I think the minimum wage is higher than that in some states, isn't it?
Well, it's $15 in California.
Okay, so if
that's
you're
a
in
higher minimum wage.
California,
How they're gonna? What if you're in California? Can you not get a job there?
Yeah.
And anyway, so
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but this is just absolutely insane to me what is going on, and I guess I'm realizing. I was at the Publix grocery store today, and I was checking out, and the guy says, "Oh, are you sure you don't want to take advantage of the senior discount?" I was like, "Really? Really? I mean, I've at least got a few more months to go. I'm not 60 till April. Could I just be not 60 for a few more months?" And the guy's like, I said, "No, I'm not 60 yet, whatever." And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, whatever." But I'm really feeling my age, not just because of that. I'm feeling like I don't understand the world anymore. And what I mean by that is I don't even understand parents. Like, how can you exist in a world where there are the adults engaged in education? Most of them, obviously not me and not you, whatever, but the vast majority think that this is fine, think that Anna is great, think that, kids, like, this is learning, that this is learning. It's like, no, this isn't learning. I mean, I don't know what this is, but I'm just speechless. I don't even know what to say.
I was going to say, everything we just described is like coming from the right end of the spectrum, the right wing end of the political spectrum. I don't know if you probably know that recently, American Federation of Teachers, they just signed a partnership with OpenAI, I think Google and Anthropic. Anthropic is definitely one of them. The other one's either Google or Microsoft.
Awesome.
And I get it mixed up.
That's awesome. Great.
But they also, at the same time, announced a partnership, direct partnership to set curriculum with the World Economic Forum. So look, OpenAI, as we just noted, right? That's the brain behind Conmigo. That was started by Elon Musk, but was also funded by Peter Thiel. And so, you know what I mean? Like, you got on the unions on the left and the school choice corporatist on the right, both propping up OpenAI to do EdTech learning. And as far as the WEF goes, I did a series at Unlimited Hangout. You can check it out, where I showed that, the unions have been in bed with EdTech for a long time, but they're also, both the NEA and the AFT, American Federation of Teachers, and National Education Association are both part of a global union federation known as Education International. And many of the higher ups there are part of, they go to the World Economic Forum. Okay. And at the same time, for people, people may not be aware, Peter Thiel was World Economic Forum. So was other mafia people like Ken Howery. Okay. So I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so it's this is not a partisan thing. It's not a left or a right thing. And yeah, I mean, rocking a hard place, man. I don't, everything I can do is doing what I'm doing, is trying to inform, explain as much as I can. But I like, to your point, I don't see a lot of people, not just in education, just AI in general, like people in the alternative media sphere, like I've seen using the AI for this, that, and the other. And I don't want to, poo-poo everybody for using them. There might be a few things here and there that might make, your business a little more efficient. Maybe send emails for it. I don't want to say that there's everybody that uses it is, dragging us into this technocracy, but kind of, you know what I mean? Like I was at a meeting for a conference not too long ago, and it was like a preparatory meeting, and one of the persons was supposed to take notes, minutes. Okay. And at the end of it, I had noticed in the Zoom, the windows in the Zoom, there was one that didn't have a face, and it had, it didn't register at the time, but it was like some text, and it was something AI. So the minutes come back. I guess this is more efficient than handwriting notes. So the minutes come back in an email, and you look at in the discussion I'm presenting. Okay. And my presentation is about everything we're talking about. And everybody in the meeting is on board that, AI and technocracy, and, what do we, this is not good. And they send back the link, and it's not, it doesn't just have a summary and a transcript of what was said. It had like effective analytics. There were three categories. One was, did we get this one isn't effective. It's more procedural. Did we get done what we came to do? So there was like a title of the meeting. Did we achieve that objective? And then the two other were like in engagement or participation and engagement. So almost like participation gets like how many people said stuff, and how frequently, and how much did they each say overall aggregate. And then it was like, did we like it? So I don't know if it was our tone of voice or the keywords that we used, or maybe it was using facial recognition, but it was analyzing how we felt about it.
That's just crazy. And this is, remember, I want to correct something because I said something incorrect, and I want to make sure I get it right. I said that Conmigo was where they were doing these dialogues. It's not Conmigo. It's actually through Schoolhouse. Now, Schoolhouse is still related to Khan Academy in that I think it's like the parent company they're connected. This is still Sal Khan's thing, because I was looking it up, and what I found was, this is a Fast Company article. And it says, in recent years, Khan Academy founder Sal Khan has been most visible promoting Conmigo, but a second nonprofit he founded called Schoolhouse focuses on connecting students with their peers for human-centered educational interactions. Since the height of COVID, blah, blah, blah. And he says it was a very utopian idea that, frankly, a lot of people were very skeptical of. You could attract volunteers and vet them and train them and give them high-quality tutoring at scale, et cetera. And then it says, as of Tuesday, Schoolhouse is publicly launching a new program, Dialogues, which connects students 14 to 18 via Zoom to respectfully discuss a variety of often controversial cultural and political topics. Developed with experts in civil discourse, the program offers students discussion guides on subjects like immigration, gun control, climate change, universal basic income, and AI. Ultimately, though, it relies on students to engage respectfully. And he says it's not debate, whatever. During sessions, students are identified only by their first names and last initials, et cetera. And then it says after each conversation, they complete surveys reflecting on their experiences, and they get scores. So here you have the person's name, you have their discussion hours, the dialogues, the topics they've talked about, challenge, they get rated.
Sounds
These
like
are
this is
the feedback. This is exactly what it's talking about. And apparently they can use these and this feedback in their college, in some college applications. Some colleges are taking these sessions. Like the more they participate, the depth of their engagement, how they get rated, the student strengths by their peers and this is all going to be documented. You know that.
Do they get badges for that? Do they get blockchain
I think
badges?
they do get badges. Yeah. I think there's like
digital. Yeah. Okay. Because
they have see here, they get leadership experience, they get badges.
Yep. And that's and so that's another part of the whole ecosystem.
Here it is. Several colleges, including my alma mater, including the University of Chicago, Johns Hopkins University, MIT, Vanderbilt, Columbia University, Colby, that's mine, Northwestern, and Washington University in St. Louis have said they will officially consider Dialogue's portfolios as part of admissions applications.
Yeah, and those badges are going to be the things that earn you your next round of school choice tokens or earn you your next round of impact investment dollars. And it's going to be on the blockchain. That's going to be the way that it's authenticated, just like a stable coin that's attached to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure, because I said it was Conmigo, but I was like one step off. It's Conmigo's the tutoring thing, and then Schoolhouse is the social credit, debate these. And notice the topics that they're talking about. They even have debates about mental health. And of course, they get rated on how nice they were and how much they challenged it. One of the key things they look for is how much did the person challenge their own beliefs? Now you might think that's great, right? But
maybe,
I'm suspicious of how that's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I mean, that's not a universal absolute, right? I mean, like maybe you don't want, maybe that thing that you're thinking is solid. Maybe you thought about the question that enough to know that that's trustworthy. Maybe, yeah.
And this is interesting. So Leave Them Kids Alone says, I don't understand at all why the union membership do not care that they're killing their own profession. I think it fits the definition of a cult. They cannot see it.
It's amazing to me.
I don't get it either.
I mean, look, a teachers union, right? I mean, the AFT is technically more like a trade union. It was formed as like a trade union, and the NEA is more like a professional union. Okay, so professional union, maybe you can't say this as much about, but AFT you could, right? If they consider themselves like a trade union, they're if they're supposed to do anything, it's two things: protect the profession of teaching and protect workers, right? Or teachers as laborers. Well, if you automate teaching, you're getting rid of both of those things, right? Like it's anti-teaching, it's anti-mind, right? Because if you're basically outsourcing the life of the mind, not only do you make the teacher obsolete, I think we've discussed this on your show, I mean, if the AI can teach anything a human can teach, then it can learn anything a human can learn. And as far as intellectual labor is concerned, then you don't need the student to learn it because the bot can already do it or can replicate itself to do it, right? So you're basically eliminating you're making teaching itself, right? The transference of ideas from one human to another obsolete, and you're making a portion of the economy, teaching as labor, you're making that obsolete. So you're basically betraying the two things that you're there to do. Yes,
exactly. And I don't know, Jake. So what is our final thought on this? Like, what do we want to tell parents? Like, I mean, is there anything we can tell them that's positive, upbeat, like what they can do? Can they do anything, or are we just waiting for it to happen?
If you have the means and you want us, don't take the money and try not, don't use the AI. I see things like, I'm like, you hear me kind of like, because I see so many people around me. Like the example I just gave, like people that absolutely should know better. Like it's one thing, like I expect the corporations to use it and want it, make some money. I expect the government to use it and want it, right? It makes things more efficient, right? More control, makes bureaucracy integrate with the companies better. I expect the average consumer to use it, right? I don't expect people that, we'll just say, I guess, for lack of a better term, our colleagues, people that have been researching this type of stuff and know what it is. Like when I see people like that using it, it's hard for me to say, hey, let's try to pump the brakes on this. But I honestly don't. If we don't, it's kind of like you said. I don't. It's just like a locomotive breath. Like it's, what I mean. It's not.
The only thing.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say is that, I mean, this is a warning right here from Tanya. She says, students' mental health information will be shared. Please take a look at what's going on in Oregon, University of Oregon, the Belmer Institute for Children's Behavioral Health. I'll take a look at that, Tanya. Thank you for that heads up, but I can almost predict what that's about. I mean, you know, if you don't want your child, to give away your child's privacy at an early age, if you don't want them sort of labeled for life, pigeonholed for life, you kind of have to not participate in these things. Don't participate in AI education. Even if somebody hands it to you for free, don't do it.
I mean,
First of all, guys, it doesn't work. I know there are a lot of these entrepreneurs online that go like, oh, AI is great for learning math. You know what? There are some things that it can be good for, but I would never use any one tool to teach a kid any subject. Truly, I wouldn't. And especially divorced from human interaction, because you will never really know whether they really understand it, really learn, if they've just mastered the game or mastered that particular application. The only way you know that somebody really understands it, they can do it completely on their own, just like, here's a problem, solve it. Not, I'm up to level 3 in the game. Like, for all you know, remember, these things are engineered so that you feel successful. So you'll keep doing it, because their incentive is different than your incentive. Their incentive is keep doing it. Keep using my product, keep feeding me data, keep training me on how easy or hard it is to learn a thing. So, just like ChatGPT is constantly going, you're right, that's a great idea. Oh my gosh, you're so smart. You think it wants you to keep using it. That's why it does it. It's not unbiased. A human being doesn't act like that. I'm a human tutor. Jake's a human tutor. I don't treat my students like that. If they mess up or something's not quite right, we go over it again. I don't puff them up and go, great, awesome, fantastic, you're great.
Well, I mean, on the flip side of what you're saying is like, one of Charlotte Iserby, my mentor, who wrote the foreword to my book and, helped me do all this, no longer with us, passed away 2022, but her good friend who basically sort of, I guess you could say, educated her on the Skinnerian agenda and how that dovetailed with the EdTech agenda. Her friend was Ann Herzer, and I've talked to Ann a few times, and I was kind of asking her. I think I talked to her around the time when my publisher said you got to have a solutions section. You can't just destroy everybody's faith, hope in the future, and end the book. So
exactly.
She said all you need to teach is, she said, a stick and take a stick, take a stick and go to the beach. And if you don't have a beach, I'd say, the idea was this, the sand is the chalkboard, basically, a stick and a pile of dirt. Her point is you literally don't really need anything. Like, can you find a stick and a pile? So there's your chalkboard, right? Especially if you're talking, early elementary, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, like, you know what I mean? Like, let alone AI and all the devices in between. So, I mean, I know that people might feel not up to par to be in charge of their child's education, but I bet you'll be able to.
That's what they've convinced people.
Not perfect it might be, I bet you it's better than the AI.
Well, it's ridiculous.
Not, and if for some reason,
if you know how to read, if you know how to
read,
you. Can you hear me now?
Hold on.
What happened?
Computer might be out of. Oh no.
Hello.
Hold on.
Is it dying? Is it? Hello.
Oh,
hello.
No, it just switched my there we go. Hold on.
Okay. The audience can hear us. Well, that's good.
No, I still can't hear you.
No? Oh no, are you going to run out of battery?
You might need to just boot me here.
Are you on battery?
Okay, this is the microphone there. This is. You there now? Can I hear you now?
I'm here. Hello? Nope.
I've been having some, my computer's old and it needs to, like when I do StreamYard and Riverside, this has happened before at some point. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
And everybody else can still hear me.
Yes.
I don't know why. Like sometimes either you can't, like my audio will cut out. My friend told me I need an extra stick of RAM is what I need ultimately. Let me just try one more thing and see. Hello?
Can you hear me?
No, I still can't hear you. No. Well, I guess should I just say a last thing before you close up and just abruptly end the stream? Okay. Yeah, I mean, all I can say, like the most practical things, is don't take that money. It's like it's like the 40 pieces of silver that you gave to Judas, all right? And don't use the devices and don't use the EdTech, the all of it. Like it's all for social credit, data mining, predictive analytics.
I agree.
I
agree.
That's the simplest step that I can tell you to take to begin with. I've got other more detailed solutions I've laid out in my book and other interviews and things, but I think that's the baseline. I mean, that's really the baseline. And anything else I might be able to say other than that, if we just go ahead and keep leaning into it, it's going to take its own momentum, and it's going to end at the place that I've described too many times. So,
yeah. Yep. Well, audience, okay, I'm going to stick around a little bit.
I'm sorry, I'm talking over top of you. I'm reading you. I'm going to go ahead and go now. Thank you for having me. I apologize, everybody, for my
I'm going to stick around a little bit after Jake goes. Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Okay. Bye. I'm going to stick around a bit just to, so it's not like super awkward as an ending. I did want to mention this came up. Oh, I can still hear him. I can still hear him. That's so funny. Okay, anyway, I want to mention this. Leave Them Kids Alone says, Deb, I was fighting with AI last week. It does not know that a specific hang on a second. I'm going to tell him he can go. So that a specific teacher was at a local school for 5 years in leadership role. I even showed proof on the school website. It will not budge. Guess what? That has happened to me with myself. So in other words, I fought all day with Grok that I am me and not a completely different person. And it kept telling me, no, you wrote this book. No, I didn't. And the thing that was funny is it claimed I wrote a book that doesn't exist, but about a topic that I might have written a book about. It's something to do with, school or something or whatever, a school choice. I'm like, no, I didn't write a book. I didn't write that book. That book doesn't exist. And P.S., I am myself. So I kept saying like who I was. No, that's not who Deborah Philman is. I'm like, no, but it is. Now, if there are other Deborah Philmans, of course, and if it had said that, as a diabetes researcher who's written many books about diabetes, that woman exists. I am not her. But no, it just kept saying, no, Deborah Philman is an education researcher who wrote this book. I'm like, no, and I'm not. I am an education researcher, but I didn't do that. I was like, no, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. This went on for hours. Another thing that happened to me was with ChatGPT. We're just to test it out. I said, I wonder what ChatGPT would say, because a dissident teacher had mentioned that ChatGPT made up parts of Romeo and Juliet that don't exist, entire passages that don't exist. I said, I wonder what it would do if I ask it to come up with some guided reading questions for Stuart Little, because I was teaching that and I've read Stuart Little, like a dozen times, right? And so I said, okay, come up with some guided reading questions for the first, I don't know, like 10 chapters. It had chapters that did not exist, titles of chapters that didn't exist, characters that didn't exist, events that hadn't happened. And I would go in and say, yeah, this didn't happen. This chapter doesn't exist by that name. And these things didn't happen. And this particular character in the book who does exist didn't do that thing that you said the character did. Oh, thank you for the correction. My bad. And then it goes and says a bunch of other crap that doesn't happen, intermingled with some things that did happen. And I'm like, this is pointless. Imagine being a kid, a student, or a dumb teacher who'd never read the book. And you just be like, okay, here you go. And then the kids would be all confused, like, what? This isn't in the book, teach. Another thing that happened was I took a spreadsheet of parent responses to a survey that I put out about homeschooling. And all I wanted the stupid AI to do, because I just wanted to save time, they said, all right, take all the responses from column D in this spreadsheet that I have given you and give them to me in a list. That's all I want. Just take column D and put them in a list and format them like, quotes. That's it. And of course I did my due diligence to make sure that they came out right and there were no, nothing attributed to the wrong person. And I'm reading them like, wait, this is too good to be true. I'm pretty sure no one said that. So I'm matching them up and there were at least 3 that did not exist. No one had said that. And I said, these don't exist. These aren't in my spreadsheet. Oh, yes, but they sound like things that people said. And I'm like, but they didn't say them. I didn't ask you to make shit up. I asked you to give me column D. Well, they sounded similar. I was like, so, yeah, AI without knowing what you're talking about or knowing what you're doing, or if you're asking it to do anything that involves any form of judgment at all, and that didn't even involve judgment, it just makes things up, makes it up. So, completely untrustworthy. About the only thing that I use it for is to take things that I already have and like go, can you just format this pretty for me? Like literally, that's about all I can do with it because it is hot garbage. Now that's OpenAI, that's ChatGPT. Grok is absurd. Grok will just argue with you all day long and be stupid. I haven't used any of the others because I don't really care to use them. But when we look at what Jake was talking about with all this technology tied to AI, EdTech companies, tied to financial technology, tied to, the idea of commoditizing your child, it gets really scary because the AI is not ready for prime time. It's not ready to teach your child to prepare your child for the future, whatever that looks like. It's just not. And they're making a lot of promises they can't back up. Look at that thing with the tutoring, the upswing, whatever it was tutoring. Improve graduation rates. Again, that's not the metric. We have graduation rates that are, crazy high in America right now. They don't align with reality. They don't align with the test scores. They don't align with literacy rates. They certainly don't align with employability and character traits. So what's the point of graduating? It doesn't mean anything. They've degraded a college degree to the point of absurdity. They've degraded a high school diploma to where it doesn't even mean anything really anymore. So what's next? Anyway, I know it's kind of scary, and on the heels of everything that happened today, I almost canceled the show. I was almost like, awesome. I don't have any good news today on top of bad news today. So, I hope at least you had a couple laughs throughout this time. But, and I also hope more people understand why I oppose school choice. I obviously don't oppose parents choosing their child's education. I don't even oppose the idea that you should get your money back. Literally your money, the one, the stuff you literally paid, not a subsidy. But I do oppose government running anything more in education, anything at all. I definitely oppose them getting their fingers in the private system as it is. And I certainly don't want them using our tax dollars to fund a bigger private system that is run by those guys. Because they're not teachers. Their incentives are not mine and yours. Parents and other kinds of teachers who actually care about children. Their incentives are making money, making profits, and correctly aligning all the little pieces, the workforce to where they think it ought to go, as if they know what the economy is going to look like, what jobs are going to look like in 15 years, 20 years, whatever. They don't. They don't know more than they knew when I was in high school. When I graduated high school in 1983, did anyone anticipate what jobs were going to be now? Did they even know what they would be in year 2000? Not a clue. Not a clue. I graduated high school. There's no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as any of this. So how could they prepare me for my future life? They couldn't. Not in the literal, plug me into a job way, but I still was well prepared to adapt to it because I could freaking read. and do basic math, and I knew how to learn and I knew how to write, but that's not what they're teaching our kids. They're teaching them how to talk to machines instead of people and think that that's normal. They're teaching them how to like give up their privacy and be surveilled 24 hours a day and think that's normal. It's none of it's normal. And when I say normal, I don't mean just, normative. It's not normal in the sense of human beings. The human animal is a social creature, is designed to interact with other humans. That is when we are happiest, healthiest, and best adjusted to life on planet Earth. And all of this is being interfered with by all of that. And then when you find out that those people don't let their own children use tech, that ought to tell you something. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in and joining me on this very difficult day. I hope you will consider all of this, consider sharing it. And thanks very much. Check out my Substack at thereasonwelearn.substack.com. And I hope you all have a great evening. Bye-bye.